The small alien ship moved through space like a wounded animal looking for a place to die. Its hull was cracked in dozens of places and strange blue liquid leaked from the wounds, freezing instantly in the cold vacuum. Inside the ship, Ambassador Kuehl pressed his crystalline hands against the controls and tried to keep his vessel moving forward. His people were dying behind him in the passenger compartments, their light slowly fading as the life support systems failed one by one. Kuehl had never seen a human before, but he had heard whispers about them from other species. They came from a world so dangerous that most galactic citizens called it a death world. The stories said that everything on their planet tried to kill them: the weather, the animals, even the plants. Most species thought these stories were just myths to scare children, but Kuehl was desperate enough to hope they were true. He opened a communication channel on all frequencies and began to broadcast his message. His voice was weak and filled with pain as he spoke in the common galactic language. Please, if there are any who can hear this message, we need help. The Vorthak have destroyed our worlds. 14 planets are dead and burning. My people are refugees with nowhere to go. We do not ask for weapons or soldiers. We only ask for a safe place where our children can live. The message traveled through the darkness of space, bouncing off communication satellites and relay stations. Most species who heard it felt sorry for the Delani but could do nothing to help. The Vorthak Empire was too powerful and too cruel. Fighting them meant certain death. Captain Lee Dongyun was drinking coffee in his quarters aboard the UES Iron Will when the message reached his ship. He was a tall man with dark hair and serious eyes that had seen too many battles. The Iron Will was one of humanity's newest warships, built with weapons that could crack moons and armor that could survive nuclear fire. Lee had commanded her for 3 years and had never lost a fight. The ship's communication officer knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. Captain, we are receiving a distress call from an unknown vessel. The translation computer says it is from a species called the Delani. They claim they are refugees from something called the Vorthak Empire. Lee set down his coffee and studied the message transcript. His training told him to wait for orders from Earth before responding to any alien contact, but something in the alien's voice made him hesitate. He had heard that same desperate tone from human refugees during the Martian Independence War, when entire colonies were being bombed into ash. Where is the signal coming from? Lee asked. 2 light hours away, sir. The ship appears to be badly damaged and moving very slowly. Lee made a decision that would change everything. Set course to intercept. Maximum speed. The Iron Will turned away from its patrol route and accelerated toward the alien vessel. The ship's powerful engines pushed it through space at speeds that would have amazed the peaceful species of the galaxy. Human ships were built for war, not exploration, and they moved with the deadly grace of predators hunting prey. It took 6 hours to reach the Delani ship. When they arrived, Lee could see the extent of the damage through his ship's sensors. The alien vessel was barely holding together, its hull breached in multiple places. Atmosphere was leaking from every crack and the power systems were failing. Hail them, Lee ordered. The communication channel crackled with static before Kuehl's voice came through. Unknown vessel, please identify yourself. We are peaceful refugees seeking sanctuary. This is Captain Lee Donghyun of the United Earth. Ship Iron Will. We received your distress call and have come to assist you. There was a long pause before Kuehl responded. You are humans? From the Death World? Yes. Prepare for docking. We will bring you aboard our ship. Lee ordered his crew to extend the docking tube and create an airlock connection with the alien ship. When the seals locked into place, he went to the docking bay with Dr. Kim Nari, his science officer, and a squad of Marines in full combat armor. The airlock opened, and Kuehl stepped through. He was unlike anything Lee had ever seen, a being made of living crystal that reflected light in beautiful patterns. But the crystal was cracked and dim, showing the extent of his injuries and exhaustion. Welcome aboard the Iron Will, Lee said, through the translation device Dr. Kim Nari had prepared. Kuehl looked at the humans with large eyes that showed both hope and fear. Lee was tall and moved with the controlled grace of a fighter. Dr. Kim Nari was smaller, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. The Marines stood perfectly still, but their weapons were ready, and Kuehl could sense the violence they were capable of. "Thank you for answering our call," Kuehl said. "I am Ambassador Kuehl of the Delani Confederation. We are all that remains of our people." Dr. Kim Nari stepped forward and began scanning Kuehl with her medical equipment. "How many survivors are on your ship?" 43 adults and 12 children. Many are injured and all are weak from hunger and fear." Lee nodded to his Marines. "Begin evacuation procedures. Get them to medical bay and the guest quarters. Handle them carefully." As the evacuation began, Kuehl told his story to Lee and Dr. Kim Nari. The Vorthak Empire had appeared at the edge of Delani space 6 months ago. They were a species that lived like a hive mind, all thinking and acting as one. But unlike bees or ants, they were purely destructive. They consumed entire planets, stripping away the atmosphere and devouring all life before moving on to the next world. "We tried to negotiate with them," Kuehl explained as they walked through the corridors of the Iron Will. "Our people have always been peaceful. We believed that all intelligent life could find common ground through discussion and compromise." Lee noticed how Kuehl flinched every time they passed a group of human crew members. The humans moved with purpose in their eyes, constantly scanned for threats. Their bodies were built for violence in a way that disturbed the peaceful alien. "What happened when you tried to negotiate?" Dr. Kim Nari asked. "They did not respond to our messages. Instead, they began destroying our outer colonies. When we sent diplomats to meet with them, the Vorthak consumed the entire diplomatic fleet. We realized then that they were not interested in territory or resources. They simply wanted to destroy everything that was not them." They reached the observation deck where Kuehl could see the Iron Will's weapon systems through the transparent aluminum windows. The ship carried enough firepower to devastate a continent, and every weapon was designed for maximum destruction. "Your species builds ships for war," Kuehl observed with a mixture of admiration and horror. "We build ships to protect what we love," Lee replied. "Sometimes that requires the ability to destroy what threatens us." Dr. Kim Nari was studying the data about the Vorthak that Kuehl had provided. According to this information, they have already destroyed 14 inhabited worlds and are moving toward the core systems of the Galactic Consortium. How many people lived on those worlds? 7 billion Delani, 3 billion Rothani, and 12 billion others from various species, Kuehl said quietly. "All dead now. Their worlds are bare rock floating in space." Lee felt a cold anger growing in his chest. He had seen genocide before during humanity's own wars, but never on such a scale. 22 billion innocent people murdered by creatures that killed for the simple joy of destruction. "We need to contact Earth immediately," he told Dr. Kim Nari. "Admiral Park Min-ho needs to know about this." As they prepared the message for Earth, Kuehl watched the humans work with growing unease. They moved with efficiency and purpose that reminded him uncomfortably of the Vorthak. But where the enemy was driven by mindless hunger, these beings were motivated by something he did not understand. They spoke casually of weapons and war as if violence was as natural as breathing. The message to Earth was brief and direct. Lee reported the first contact with the Delani, the threat posed by the Vorthak Empire, and his recommendation for immediate military response. He ended the transmission with words that would echo through galactic history. "The Vorthak have made a mistake. They think they are the apex predators in this galaxy. They are about to learn why humans do not start fights, but we always finish them." 2 days later, the response came from Admiral Park Min-ho himself. The message was even shorter than Lee's report. "Bring the alien to Earth immediately. Prepare the 1st through 5th battle groups for deployment. It seems the galaxy needs to learn what happens when you threaten a Deathworlders pack." As the Iron Will changed course for Earth, Kuehl realized that his desperate plea for help had succeeded beyond his wildest hopes. But as he watched the human crew prepare for war with cold efficiency, he began to wonder if he had saved his people or doomed the entire galaxy to something even worse than the Vorthak. The journey to Earth took 5 days, and during that time Kuehl learned more about humans than he ever wanted to know. The crew of the Iron Will treated him and his people with kindness, but there was something in their eyes that made him nervous. They looked at everything as if it might be a threat, and their conversations often turned to violence with casual ease. Dr. Kim Nari spent hours with Kuehl, trying to help him understand human nature. She was patient and gentle, but even she carried weapons and moved like a predator. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day," she explained as they sat in the ship's library. "The weather could freeze or burn us. The animals hunted us for food, and even the plants developed toxins to poison us. We learned to be dangerous because being weak meant death." Kuehl studied the images of Earth that Dr. Kim Nari showed him on her tablet computer. The planet was beautiful but terrifying, with massive storms that could level cities and creatures that seemed designed only for killing. "How did your species survive such a place?" "We became better killers than anything else on the planet," Dr. Kim Nari said simply. "We learned to hunt in groups, to make weapons, and to never give up. When something threatened our children, we did not run away. We destroyed it completely." The Delani refugees were housed in comfortable quarters, but Kuehl noticed that human guards were always nearby. The guards were polite and helpful, but they watched everything with eyes that missed nothing. Colonel Yoon Ji-ho visited the refugees daily to check on their needs, and his presence both comforted and terrified them. "Your people seem very concerned about our safety," Kuehl observed to the colonel during one of these visits. "Protecting refugees is our duty," Yoon Ji-ho replied. "But we are also learning about you and your enemies. Every piece of information helps us prepare for war." "War?" Kuehl was startled by the casual way the human spoke about it. Surely there must be other options. Negotiation, compromise, peaceful solutions. Colonel Yoon Ji-ho's expression did not change. "You tried peaceful solutions. How did that work for your 14 dead worlds?" When they reached Earth, Kuehl was transferred to the UES Yamato, the flagship of Admiral Park Min-ho. The ship was enormous, larger than some of the space stations Kuehl had visited. Its corridors echoed with the sound of thousands of boots as human soldiers prepared for deployment. Admiral Park Min-ho was an older man with gray hair and scars on his face from battles fought long ago. He welcomed Kuehl to his ship with formal politeness, but his eyes were cold and calculating. "Ambassador Kuehl, I have read Captain Lee's report about your situation. Tell me everything you know about the Vorthak Empire." Kuehl spent the next 3 days in briefing sessions with human military officers. They asked detailed questions about Vorthak technology, tactics, and psychology. The humans took notes on everything and created complex battle plans based on his information. What disturbed Kuehl most was how excited they seemed about the prospect of fighting. Chief Engineer Oh Suman gave Kuehl a tour of the ship's weapon systems, and what he saw made his crystal form dim with horror. The humans had created devices that could destroy entire planets, missiles that could think and learn, and energy weapons that burned hotter than stars. "Why do you make such terrible things?" he asked. "Because sometimes terrible things try to destroy what we love," Osuman replied while adjusting the targeting system of a massive cannon. "We learned long ago that being stronger than your enemies is the best way to protect your family." Lieutenant Commander Cho Min-jae was younger than the other officers, but his knowledge of space combat was impressive. He showed Kuehl tactical simulations of battles between human and Vorthak forces. The humans fought with brutal efficiency, using tactics that seemed designed to cause maximum psychological damage to their enemies. "Your species fights very differently from ours," Kuehl observed, as he watched a simulation where human ships rammed into Vorthak vessels. "We always tried to minimize casualties and avoid unnecessary destruction. That is why your worlds are ash and your people are refugees," Cho Min-jae said bluntly. "The Vorthak do not understand mercy or restraint. They only understand strength and fear." The human fleet began assembling in Earth's orbit, and Kuehl watched in amazement as more and more warships arrived. Each vessel was built for destruction, with weapons that could level continents and armor that could survive nuclear bombardment. The ships moved with precise coordination, like a pack of predators preparing to hunt. Dr. Kim Nari continued to serve as Kuehl's guide and translator, helping him understand human customs and thinking. She explained how humans had fought countless wars throughout their history, always becoming more efficient and deadly with each conflict. War is terrible, she admitted. But we have learned that sometimes the only way to stop a greater evil is to become something even more dangerous. Colonel Yoon Ji-ho's soldiers practiced boarding actions in the ship's training facilities, preparing to fight Vorthak creatures in close combat. The humans used weapons that seemed primitive compared to galactic technology. Metal blades, explosive charges, and projectile weapons that fired solid bullets, but Kyul could see the deadly effectiveness of their tactics. "Why do you not use energy weapons like other civilized species?" he asked Colonel Yoon Ji-ho. "Because a bullet works whether your enemy has shields or not," the colonel replied while cleaning his pistol. "Energy weapons can be blocked or deflected. A piece of metal moving at high speed will punch through anything if you fire enough of them." The most disturbing moment came when Chief Engineer Oh Sumin showed Kyul something called the Ragnarok Protocol. Even the humans seemed frightened of this weapon, and its very existence was classified at the highest levels of their government. "What does it do?" Kyul asked. "It ends everything," Oh Sumin said quietly. "If we cannot stop the Vorthak with conventional weapons, we can make sure they never threaten anyone again, even if it costs us our own lives." As the human fleet prepared for departure, Kyul found himself in Admiral Park's private office. The walls were covered with images of human battles throughout history, from ancient warriors with swords to modern soldiers with advanced technology. Every image showed the same thing: humans who refused to surrender even when facing overwhelming odds. "Your people frighten me," Kyul admitted to the Admiral. "You speak of war and death as if they are normal things. You create weapons that could destroy entire star systems. How are you different from the Vorthak?" Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment before answering. "The difference is that we fight to protect, not to destroy. The Vorthak kill because it brings them pleasure. We kill because it is sometimes the only way to stop greater killing. When this war is over, we will put away our weapons and help rebuild what was lost. The Vorthak would simply move on to the next galaxy and start the slaughter again." "But the cost," Kyul protested. "So many will die in this war. Is there truly no other way?" "Your people tried the other way," the Admiral reminded him. 22 billion died because you believed in peace more than you believed in protecting your children. We choose to believe in both, even if it means becoming monsters in the eyes of others." The final preparation came when the human fleet conducted war games in the outer system. Kyul watched from the observation deck as over 100 warships engaged in mock combat. Their movements were coordinated with terrifying precision, like a single organism designed for destruction. The ships used tactics that seemed wasteful and brutal, sacrificing themselves to achieve tactical advantages. "They fight like they do not care about dying," Kyul observed to Dr. Kim Nari. "We care very much about dying," she corrected him, "but we care more about living. If our death means our children survive, then it is a good death. If our violence means peace for others, then it is necessary violence." On the final night before departure, Kyul attended a ceremony where Admiral Park addressed the entire fleet. The humans sang songs of war and courage, their voices echoing through the ship's communication systems. The words spoke of sacrifice and duty, of standing against darkness no matter the cost. As the ceremony ended, Kyul realized that he had made a decision that could not be undone. He had called for help from the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they had answered with overwhelming force. The Vorthak would face something they had never encountered before: prey that fought back with the fury of apex predators. The human fleet departed Earth in perfect formation, 137 ships carrying the hopes and fears of an entire species. As they entered hyperspace, Kyul sent a message to the surviving consortium worlds: "Help is coming, but it comes with teeth and claws and the fury of a death world. May the galaxy forgive us for what we have unleashed." In the depths of space, the human fleet raced toward their destiny, carrying weapons that could crack planets and soldiers who had never learned the meaning of surrender. Behind them, Earth continued its orbit around the sun, peaceful and beautiful, hiding the truth that it had given birth to the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen. The human fleet arrived at the edge of Delaney space after 6 days in hyperspace, and what they found there made even hardened soldiers pause in shock. 3 entire star systems had been stripped of life, their planets reduced to bare rock floating in the darkness. The Vorthak had not simply destroyed these worlds, they had consumed them completely, leaving nothing behind but empty husks. Admiral Park Min-ho stood on the bridge of the Yamato, studying the tactical displays that showed the extent of the devastation. Billions of people had lived in these systems just months ago. Now there was only silence and death, monuments to the Vorthak's hunger for destruction. "Sir, we are detecting refugee camps in the Kepler 438 system," reported the sensor officer. "Multiple species, approximately 2 million survivors scattered across 17 makeshift habitats. Set course for the refugee camps," Admiral Park ordered. "I want to see what we are fighting for." The human fleet moved through the dead systems, like ghosts haunting a graveyard. Captain Song Hyeri's stealth frigate, the UES Ghost Protocol, scouted ahead using advanced sensors that could detect enemy movement from light years away. Her ship was built for reconnaissance and sabotage, painted black as space and equipped with technology that made it nearly invisible. "Admiral, we have contacts," Song Hyeri reported from her hidden position near the outer planets. "Vorthak patrol fleet, estimated strength 50 vessels, moving in standard sweep formation. They appear to be hunting for survivors." Admiral Park studied the tactical data that appeared on his screens. The Vorthak ships were unlike anything in human databases, organic vessels that looked more grown than built, with hulls that pulsed like living tissue. They moved with predatory grace but in rigid formations that suggested hive mind control. "All ships prepare for combat," the Admiral ordered. "But wait for my command. I want to see how they fight before we reveal our strength." The first engagement happened by accident. The destroyer UES Soul's Fury was investigating a distress beacon when a Vorthak patrol discovered them. Captain Han Minsu found his ship facing 50 enemy vessels, each one larger and more heavily armed than his destroyer. "This is Soul's Fury to Fleet Command," Han Minsu reported calmly. "We have encountered Vorthak forces, beginning evasive maneuvers." What happened next became legend in human military history. Instead of retreating or calling for help, Captain Han Minsu ordered his ship to attack. The Soul's Fury charged directly into the center of the Vorthak formation, its weapons firing continuously. Human kinetic weapons proved devastatingly effective against Vorthak bioarmor. Railgun slugs punched through organic hulls like paper, and explosive warheads detonated inside the alien vessels with catastrophic results. The Vorthak had never faced an enemy that shot first and asked questions later. But the Soul's Fury was outnumbered 50-1, and even human engineering had limits. After destroying 23 Vorthak ships, the destroyer's hull finally gave way to enemy fire. Captain Han Minsu's final transmission was heard throughout the human fleet. "Tell my family I died protecting children. All hands, prepare for ramming speed." The Soul's Fury accelerated directly into the largest Vorthak vessel and detonated its nuclear reactor. The explosion vaporized both ships and damaged 6 others beyond repair. In 30 minutes of combat, a single human destroyer had crippled an entire enemy patrol. Aboard the Vorthak hive ship that served as their command center, Brood Prime Nectar tried to understand what had happened. The creature was massive and grotesque, part of a collective consciousness that had conquered dozens of galaxies. But the destruction of half his patrol by a single enemy ship was beyond his comprehension. "Analysis of engagement parameters," Nectar commanded through the psychic link that connected all Vorthak minds. "Explain tactical failure." The response came from surviving ship commanders. Enemy vessel displayed irrational aggression patterns. Attacked superior force without hesitation. Continued fighting while heavily damaged. Self-destructed rather than surrender. Behavior inconsistent with standard prey responses. Major Kang Woojin received orders to conduct a boarding action against a damaged Vorthak vessel that had been disabled by the Soul's Fury. He led his Reaper Squad Special Forces unit aboard the alien ship, prepared for anything except what they actually found. The interior of the Vorthak vessel was a nightmare of living tissue and organic technology. The corridors were made of bone and sinew that pulsed with alien life. Chambers contained the partially digested remains of consortium citizens, their bodies being slowly consumed by the ship itself. "Command, this is Reaper Leader, Major Kang," Wu Jin reported through his encrypted communication system. The enemy vessel is not just a ship. It is a living creature that feeds on organic matter. I am uploading biological data now, but recommend immediate sterilization of all Vorthak vessels. The boarding action revealed crucial information about Vorthak psychology and biology. They were indeed a hive mind, but one based on fear and hunger, rather than cooperation. Individual Vorthak could be separated from the collective and were helpless when alone. More importantly, they had never encountered prey that fought back with equal viciousness. Dr. Ryu Tai-hyung, the fleet's biological warfare specialist, analyzed the samples brought back by Major Kang Woo-jin's team. What he discovered changed everything about the coming war. Admiral, the Vorthak share a collective nervous system across their entire fleet. Chemical or biological weapons that affect one ship will spread to all connected vessels. They have made themselves vulnerable by linking their biology so closely. Admiral Park studied the biological data with cold interest. Recommendations, Doctor? We have several options, Dr. Ryu Tae-hyung replied. Nerve agents that will cause paralysis across their fleet, biological weapons that will disrupt their hive-mind connection, or viruses designed to attack their shared immune system. All are violations of galactic conventions on warfare, but effective. The galactic conventions were written by species that never faced extinction, the Admiral said quietly. Prepare all options. We will use whatever tools are necessary to stop this threat. Captain Song Hyeri continued her reconnaissance missions, mapping Vorthak positions and studying their tactics. Her reports painted a picture of an enemy that was powerful but predictable, relying on overwhelming force and terror tactics rather than strategy or adaptability. They fight like an algorithm, she reported during a fleet briefing. Same formation, same approach to every battle. They have never needed to adapt because everything they fought before simply ran away or died quickly. Lieutenant Commander Cho Min-jae used this information to develop human tactical doctrine for fighting the Vorthak. We have advantages they cannot counter, he explained to the assembled captains. We can adapt quickly to new situations. We fight as individuals within a coordinated plan, and we do not retreat when facing superior numbers. The breakthrough came when Major Kang Woo-jin led another boarding action, this time against a Vorthak command vessel. His team fought through corridors of living nightmare to reach the ship's nerve center, where they discovered the true horror of the Vorthak collective mind. They are not just connected, he reported. They share all sensations, including pain. When one Vorthak dies in agony, every connected creature feels it. They avoid individual combat because the death of one warrior causes psychological trauma to thousands. This information led to the development of new human tactics designed to maximize Vorthak suffering. Weapons that caused slow, painful death replaced quick, efficient killing tools. Psychological warfare became as important as physical destruction. Captain Bae Junho flew the experimental fighter UES Fury in the first large-scale engagement between human and Vorthak forces. His squadron used tactics that seemed suicidal to galactic observers, but were perfectly logical to creatures evolved from persistence hunters. They attacked in waves, each pilot willing to die to create opportunities for the next attack. They expected us to fight like the other species, Bae Junho reported after the battle. Stand off at long range, use energy shields, retreat when damaged. Instead, we got close, used kinetic weapons, and kept attacking even when our ships were crippled. Their bioships cannot handle sustained kinetic bombardment. The Vorthak Brood Prime began receiving reports of defeat after defeat, as human forces systematically destroyed his scouting fleets. Each battle followed the same pattern. Human ships would attack aggressively, inflict maximum casualties, and either win decisively or die in a manner that caused even more damage to Vorthak forces. What manner of species is this? Nectar? Demanded through the hive mind network. They fight with madness that defies logical analysis. Individual warriors sacrifice themselves for tactical advantage. They use weapons banned by civilized species. They take no prisoners and show no mercy. The answer came from a Vorthak survivor who had witnessed human combat tactics firsthand. They are predators, Brood Prime, not the prey species we have always hunted, but apex predators from a world that forged them in violence. They do not fight for conquest or feeding. They fight for the complete elimination of threats to their pack. General Lim Gayung prepared her ground forces for planetary assault operations, knowing that the real war would be fought on worlds where civilian populations needed protection. Her soldiers trained for Urba. The battle for the consortium's last stronghold began with humanity's most terrifying capability, the complete coordination of overwhelming violence. Admiral Park Min-ho did not order his fleet to engage in honorable single combat or attempt further negotiation. Instead, he implemented Operation Deathworld, a strategy that would show the galaxy why humans were called the children of a world that tried to kill them every day. The Vorthak fleet approached in their traditional formation, a massive wall of bioships that had conquered 47 galaxies through sheer numbers and terror. Brood Prime Nektar commanded from his hive ship, confident that no species could stand against the collective might of his empire. He had never faced predators who hunted in coordinated packs. Captain Bei Junho led the first wave of human fighters, diving through Vorthak defensive screens with tactics that horrified even his own allies. Human pilots did not just attack enemy vessels. They used their damaged ships as weapons, ramming them into critical targets when their missiles were exhausted. The Vorthak, evolved from scavengers, had never encountered such deliberate self-sacrifice for tactical advantage. "All fighters remember your training," Bei Junho transmitted to his squadron as they accelerated toward the enemy fleet. "We are not here to survive, we are here to win. Every ship you disable means fewer weapons firing at our capital ships. Make your deaths count." The fighter assault carved bloody gaps in the Vorthak formation, but the real horror began when General Lim Gayung's ground forces engaged Vorthak biotroops on the contested worlds. Human soldiers employed tactics that violated every galactic convention on warfare, weapons and strategies developed during millennia of fighting on a planet where everything was trying to kill them. When Vorthak biotroops attempted to burrow under human defensive positions, they found themselves walking into kill zones designed by minds that understood predation intimately. Flamethrowers turned Vorthak tunnels into crematoriums, the organic passages becoming death traps as fire consumed everything within them. The screams of burning Vorthak transmitted through their hive-mind connection, causing psychological trauma to thousands of linked creatures. "They are not fighting a war," observed one terrified Vorthak commander through the collective consciousness. "They are conducting an extermination." Dr. Ryu Tae-hyung's Biological Warfare Division introduced the Vorthak to humanity's expertise, with microscopic killers, pathogens, and toxins refined by billions of years of evolution. On a death world, human-engineered viruses spread through the Vorthak fleet like wildfire, attacking their shared biology and turning their collective nervous system into a weapon against itself. The nerve agents were particularly effective, causing paralysis and pain that transmitted through the hive mind to affect entire fleets. What should have been the Vorthak's greatest strength, their shared consciousness, became their most devastating weakness when humans turned it against them. Major Kang Woo-jin's special forces conducted boarding actions that were less military operations and more controlled slaughter. His Reaper squad had studied Vorthak psychology and biology, learning exactly how to inflict maximum psychological damage through the collective consciousness. They used weapons designed for slow, agonizing death rather than quick elimination. "Every Vorthak we kill in agony sends that pain through their entire fleet," Major Kang Woo-jin explained to his soldiers during mission briefing. "We are not just destroying individual enemies. We are breaking their collective will to fight by showing them that resistance means suffering beyond their ability to endure." Ambassador Kyul watched the human war machine from the observation deck of the Yamato, his crystalline form growing dimmer with each report of human victories. The methods his saviors employed were beyond anything he had imagined possible. "This is not war," he transmitted to Admiral Park. "This is extermination. You fight like the Vorthak, but with greater efficiency." "No," Admiral Park replied calmly, never taking his eyes from the tactical displays showing Vorthak ships burning across 3 star systems. "The Vorthak kill for pleasure and feeding. We kill for the right of children to grow up safely. The methods may appear similar, but the EUI purpose makes all the difference." The turning point came when Chief Engineer Suman activated the Ragnarok Protocol against a Vorthak hive ship that refused to surrender. The weapon was humanity's most closely guarded secret, a device that could destabilize matter at the quantum level. The target ship simply ceased to exist, along with everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. The demonstration sent shockwaves through the Vorthak collective consciousness. They were creatures that understood destruction, but the complete obliteration of matter itself was beyond their comprehension. For the first time in their species' history, the Vorthak felt something they had never experienced before: genuine terror. Brood Prime Nectar attempted to understand what was happening to his empire through analysis of battle reports. His fleets were being systematically destroyed by tactics that defied all logical military doctrine. The humans fought with coordination that rivaled the hive mind itself, but maintained individual creativity that allowed rapid adaptation to new situations. They share information like a collective but think like individuals, he reported to the greater Vorthak Empire through long-range communication. Each warrior is expendable, but chooses their own method of causing maximum damage. They use weapons and tactics banned by every civilized species, and they show no hesitation about employing forbidden technologies. Lieutenant Commander Cho Min-jae coordinated the fleet's tactical responses from his position aboard the Yamato. His youth was deceptive. He possessed an intuitive understanding of void warfare that allowed him to predict Vorthak movements and counter them before the enemy could adapt. "They are learning," he warned Admiral Park during one engagement. "The hive mind is beginning to understand our tactics and develop countermeasures. We need to escalate our operations before they can adapt fully." The escalation came in the form of Captain Song Hyere's stealth operations behind enemy lines. Her ship, the Ghost Protocol, penetrated deep into Vorthak-controlled space and began destroying supply lines and communication networks. Unlike the frontal assaults of the main fleet, these operations were conducted with surgical precision designed to cause maximum disruption. Stealth 1 to Fleet Command, Song Hyere reported during one particularly successful mission. Have destroyed primary Vorthak supply depot and 3 communication hubs. Enemy coordination in Sector 7 is breaking down. Recommend immediate assault while they are disorganized. The assault that followed became known as the Battle of Kepler Prime, where human forces demonstrated the full extent of their tactical flexibility. Instead of the rigid formations favored by galactic military doctrine, human ships attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, while ground forces conducted orbital drops directly onto enemy positions. Colonel Yoon Ji-ho's 7th Orbital Drop Regiment descended through Vorthak orbital defenses in armored pods that survived impacts that would have destroyed conventional landing craft. His soldiers emerged from the pods ready for immediate combat, carrying weapons that had been specifically designed to exploit Vorthak biological weaknesses. Drop successful, Yoon Ji-ho reported as his troops secured the landing zone. Beginning Phase 2 operations. Enemy bioforms are responding as predicted. They are attempting to swarm our positions instead of using coordinated tactics. The human response was devastating in its simplicity. Instead of trying to fight the swarm, they channeled it into pre-prepared killing fields where automated weapons and area effect bombs turned thousands of Vorthak biotroops into organic debris. The screams of the dying transmitted through the hive mind, causing psychological trauma that paralyzed entire enemy formations. Dr. Ryu Tae-hyung monitored the biological warfare aspects of the campaign from his laboratory aboard the medical ship Hippocrates. His virus weapons were spreading through the Vorthak fleet faster than expected, causing system failures and communication breakdowns that made coordinated resistance impossible. "The pathogens are exceeding projected effectiveness," he reported to Admiral Park. "Their shared biology is amplifying the effects exponentially. Estimate 40% of enemy fleet will be combat ineffective within 6 hours." As human forces pressed their advantage across multiple fronts, Brood Prime Nectar made a decision that shocked his own collective consciousness. For the first time in Vorthak history, he attempted to negotiate with an enemy rather than simply consuming them. "Human fleet," came the transmission on standard diplomatic frequencies. "Vorthak Empire requests cessation of hostilities for negotiation of terms." We acknowledge your species as apex predators and seek accommodation. Admiral Park's response was broadcast throughout both fleets, ensuring that every human in Vorthak would hear it simultaneously. Negotiation requires recognition of authority. You are criminals guilty of genocide against 22 billion innocent beings. Surrender unconditionally and submit to galactic justice, or face complete annihilation. These are not terms for discussion. This is your final warning. The response from the Vorthak fleet was immediate. 3 months after the Battle of Kepler Prime, the Vorthak Empire had withdrawn beyond the galactic rim, carrying with them tales of predators so dangerous that even their collective courage failed when faced with human warfare. The surviving aliens retreated to the dark spaces between galaxies, their hive mind forever marked by the memory of species that fought not for conquest, but for the right of children to live in peace. Admiral Park Minho stood in his private quarters aboard the Yamato, reading casualty reports that told the story of humanity's first galactic war. 47,000 human soldiers had died in the fighting, along with 68 ships destroyed and countless others damaged beyond repair. But these numbers seemed small compared to the alternative, the complete extinction of 14 species and the spread of Vorthak destruction throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Kuehl visited the Admiral in his quarters, his crystalline form brighter than it had been since the destruction of his homeworld. The refugee camps had been transformed into permanent settlements, and Delaney children were beginning to play again instead of cowering in fear. But the price of this peace weighed heavily on the alien's conscience. Your species saved us all, Kuehl said through the translation device. But I fear we have changed the galaxy in ways that cannot be undone. The other species look at humans now with the same fear they once reserved for the Vorthak. Admiral Park set down his reports and looked out at the stars through his cabin window. Human patrol ships moved through space with deadly efficiency, establishing defensive positions and monitoring for any sign of renewed Vorthak activity. Fear is not always a bad thing, he replied quietly. Fear can prevent wars as easily as it can start them. Dr. Kim Nari had spent the months since the war documenting the changes that First Contact had brought to both human and alien cultures. Her reports painted a complex picture of species learning to coexist while fundamentally misunderstanding each other's motivations and methods. The consortium species see us as necessary monsters, she explained to Admiral Park during one of their regular briefings. They are grateful for our protection but terrified of our methods. Some propose limiting our military presence, while others want to integrate human tactics into their own forces. The most significant challenge came from the Galactic Consortium Council, where representatives of surviving species debated humanity's role in their new reality. Many council members had witnessed human warfare firsthand and were struggling to reconcile their pacifist philosophies with the brutal efficiency of their saviors. Captain Lee Dong-hyun, whose rescue of Ambassador Kuehl had started the entire chain of events, now commanded a mixed fleet of human and alien vessels tasked with protecting refugee settlements. His experience working with other species had taught him valuable lessons about the challenges of interspecies cooperation. They want us to protect them, but they also want us to do it gently, he reported during a fleet commanders meeting. They do not understand that effective protection requires the ability and willingness to destroy threats completely. They want safety without violence, which is impossible when facing enemies like the Vorthak. Chief Engineer Osuman had been tasked with sharing human defensive technology with consortium species, but the process was complicated by fundamental differences in engineering philosophy. Human weapons were designed for maximum lethality and ease of maintenance, while alien technology prioritized efficiency and minimal environmental impact. They build their ships to last for centuries, she explained to her engineering teams. We build ours to fight wars and be replaced when necessary. Their energy weapons are elegant and clean. Our kinetic weapons are brutal and reliable. Teaching them our methods means changing their entire approach to technology. The most difficult negotiations involved the establishment of what became known as the Terran Protectorate, a unique arrangement where humanity would serve as the military arm of the consortium while being bound by strict rules of engagement. The debates lasted for weeks and involved complex discussions of military doctrine, civilian protection, and the prevention of human expansionism. Lieutenant Commander Cho Min-jae found himself serving as a military advisor to the Consortium Defense Committee, trying to explain human tactical thinking to species that had never developed comprehensive military doctrine. His youth made him seem less threatening to the alien representatives, but his knowledge of warfare was encyclopedic. "You must understand," he told the committee during one particularly tense session, "human military doctrine is based on the assumption that our enemies will show no mercy to civilians. We fight with maximum force precisely because we want the fighting to end as quickly as possible. Long wars cause more suffering than short, decisive ones." General Lim Gayong established the first joint training facilities where human soldiers would teach basic combat techniques to Consortium security forces. The process was complicated by the physiological and psychological differences between species, but progress was being made in developing defensive strategies suitable for non-aggressive species. "We are not trying to turn them into human soldiers," she explained to her training staff. "We are teaching them how to protect themselves and their families when peaceful solutions fail. The goal is to make them harder targets, not better killers." Major Kang Woojin's Special Forces unit had been disbanded after the war, their skills considered too dangerous for peacetime operations. He now served as an advisor on counter-terrorism and hostage rescue, sharing his expertise while trying to adapt human special operations doctrine for species that found violence psychologically traumatic. The most controversial aspect of the new arrangement was humanity's insistence on maintaining their most devastating weapons, including the classified systems that had proven so effective against the Vorthak. Many Consortium species wanted these weapons destroyed, while others argued they were necessary deterrents against future threats. Dr. Ryu Taehyung faced the greatest criticism for his biological warfare programs, which had violated numerous galactic conventions while proving devastatingly effective against the enemy. His research was classified and his methods questioned, but the results spoke for themselves. Human bioweapons had saved billions of lives by ending the war quickly. "I did what was necessary to stop a greater evil." He defended his work during a closed hearing of the Consortium Ethics Committee. "The Vorthak were committing genocide on an unprecedented scale. My weapons ended that genocide and prevented its spread to other galaxies. If that makes me a war criminal in your eyes, so be it." Captain Song Hyeri continued her reconnaissance operations, but now her targets were potential threats rather than active enemies. Her stealth ship monitored the galactic rim for signs of Vorthak return, while gathering intelligence on other aggressive species that might threaten Consortium space. The final resolution came during a joint session of the Consortium Council and the Terran Defense Authority, where Ambassador Kuehl delivered a speech that would become one of the most important documents in galactic history. "We are gathered here to judge a species that answered our plea for help when no one else would," Kuehl began, his crystalline form glowing with conviction. "Yes, humans are predators. Yes, their methods are brutal, and their weapons terrible. But they are our predators now, and when darkness comes again, and it will come, I would rather have Deathworlders standing with us than face extinction alone." The speech swayed the Council toward accepting the Terran Protectorate, but with strict limitations on human military operations and regular reviews of their methods. Humanity would serve as the Consortium's shield, but under careful oversight designed to prevent abuse of their power. Admiral Park accepted the role of Supreme Commander of Consortium Defense Forces, a position that made him responsible for protecting 17 species across hundreds of worlds. The job came with resources he had never imagined: fleets, bases, and the authority to respond to threats anywhere in Consortium space. "We are no longer just human soldiers," he told his officers during the transfer ceremony. "We are guardians of galactic peace. That means we must be even more careful about how and when we use our weapons. The galaxy will judge us not just by our victories, but by our restraint." The new arrangement was tested 6 months later, when a species called the Hegemony began raiding Consortium shipping lanes. Unlike the Vorthak, they were not interested in genocide. They simply wanted to steal resources and enslave populations for manual labor. The human response was swift and precise. Captain Bei Junho's fighter squadrons disabled the raiding ships without destroying them, while Colonel Yoon Ji-ho's troops conducted boarding actions designed to capture, rather than kill the pirates. The hegemony leadership was given the same ultimatum that had been offered to the Vorthak: surrender or face escalation. The difference was that this time, the enemy chose surrender. Word of human military capabilities had spread throughout the galaxy, and few species were willing to test them after witnessing the fate of the Vorthak Empire. 5 years after the end of the Vorthak War, Ambassador Kuehl stood in the observation deck of a consortium diplomatic vessel, watching human patrol ships maintain their eternal vigil over civilized space. His people had rebuilt their civilization on new worlds,